It's a Tuesday night, so we have some questions to answer. The weather has cooled down again, as it does in the mountains, so giving us a chance to contemplate impermanence of temperature and other various conditions. So tonight, the first question. Dear Luang Por, thank you for answering my questions. I am very grateful. May I know why is one's will or determination to practice knowing or mindfulness different as compared to others? What is the effective way to practice right knowing consistently? Thank you. Well, one way to look at it, in Buddhism, there's ways we talk about people's spiritual development, spiritual maturity. So the Buddha would use the 5 faculties, or 5 indriya. That's saddha, faith, viriya, effort and energy, sati, mindfulness, samadhi, concentration, and panya, wisdom. And each individual will have developed these qualities at to a different extent, to a different level. Just like other kinds of knowledge and qualities people have, some have more than others. Every personality, every person is different. And so the way we differentiate between practitioners and why one person seems to meditate with more mindfulness or have more compassion or more faith, more insight, more wisdom. In short, it's probably to do with how long they've been practicing, and firstly in this lifetime and then over many past lifetimes as well. Why does one person sit down and meditate and straight away they can concentrate on an object with good mindfulness, and another person can't? They're facing lots of obstacles, distractions, or different moods besieging their mind. Partly it's what's gone before, how much somebody has been practicing already. Everybody has the quality of mindfulness, or this quality of knowing. It's just some people have developed it further or more than others. So when you ask what is the effective way to practice right knowing consistently, well, just keep practicing. That's why we call it practice. It's something you have to keep coming back to. One of the initial factors that will prompt you to practice mindfulness is hearing the Dhamma. And of course, as we just chanted tonight in the Noble Eightfold Path, right mindfulness, it's right when it's practiced in conjunction with the other 7 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. That word samma means right or correct mindfulness. And so if one has right view, which one gains from listening to the Dhamma, reading the Dhamma, listening to teachers, asking questions, or just listening to explanations of practice, reading the suttas, anything that is what you might call good Dhamma can prompt you or help to bring up faith, and from faith you get energy and effort. You want to put forth effort in your practice. So hearing the Dhamma will be one important cause for having the will or the willingness to practice mindfulness. So listen to Dhamma often. It corrects your views and misunderstandings, it helps remove doubts, and it helps you to focus your mind on the practice. Another important factor is associating with other people who practice mindfulness. So the best arahants. Spend time with arahants if you find them, if you know them, or noble ones in general, or good practitioners, Kalyana Mitta, people with sila, people who meditate, people who give value to the practice of developing mindfulness in daily life, people who see it as a useful thing and are doing it themselves. When you spend time with them, some of it rubs off on you. And myself, and I think every other monk I know, will be able to tell you how when they began practicing and went and lived with a teacher, whether it's Ajahn Chah or any other teacher, if that teacher is more mindful than you, and usually that's the case when you begin your practice, then some of their mindfulness will be an important cause for you to be mindful, because you're living with them, you see them, you hear them, they act mindfully, they speak mindfully, they do things that reflect their practice of mindfulness, and you'll notice that, and that can feed back into your own reflection, and you can internalize it and develop some of the same kind of qualities. Of course, your character, your personality may differ, but if you're living with a mindful person, you'll notice in different ways. Maybe you'll notice them not get angry or irritated in a situation where you or other people may be tempted to be irritated or angry. Maybe you'll notice them being restrained in a situation where you might be tempted to be unrestrained. They may display their mindfulness in different ways. They go without indulging in different moods. You notice how they don't follow their moods so much. They're more equanimous, because mindfulness leads to equanimity. This quality of the knowing is just knowing moods and feelings and external objects, but without reacting all the time with liking and disliking. When there's mindfulness or knowing, you can maintain equanimity. And that can be in the middle of the day or the middle of the night. So some teachers I've lived with, Luang Por Chah for one, would be very mindful even in the middle of the night. And you see him there with his eyes wide open at 3 a.m. Teachers like Luang Por Blian used to visit here, and when he visited here, sometimes he'd stay talking to the monks until 1 or 2 a.m. when everyone else is falling asleep. He would still be wide awake with mindfulness. Then he might go and do some chanting. And Luang Por Anan was the same. When I lived with Luang Por Anan, he'd often be very mindful at times when everyone else was exhausted, falling asleep, distracted, and so on. You live with someone who has mindfulness, their speech and their behavior reflects that. When they sit meditation, they're not falling asleep, they're mindful, they're awake, and you see that, so that spurs you on. And they can't transfer their mindfulness to you, they can't make you know or be aware, but the good example they set does help you. Something you see, you witness, so then it spurs you on, motivates you, gives you energy to practice, gives you a good example of what it's like when you meet someone who's mindful. Then you see what the benefits of it. So that also motivates you. You want to practice, you have faith. So hearing the Dhamma, associating with Kalyana Mitta are two essential factors for helping you to develop your own mindfulness and this quality of knowing. Regular meditation practice, sitting and walking meditation, keeping precepts. If you keep precepts, that brings you a certain discipline. You're paying attention to your speech, your actions, because you want to keep precepts. So it means you just the obvious ones, you undertake not to kill living beings. That will include insects and bugs. So if an insect or a bug lands on you and you're determined to keep that precept, it will bring up mindfulness immediately that you cannot just squash that fly. You may carefully shoo it away perhaps, or just tolerate it. But your precept and determination to keep and train with a precept makes you mindful. Same with speech. If you're keeping precepts, you're trying not to lie, abuse, insult others, gossip, and so on. So you start reflecting on your speech. And sometimes keeping precepts leads us to reflect back on our behavior, and you might notice sometimes you broke a precept, you weren't mindful, but then when you reflect back, that makes you mindful, and then you establish the determination to not break the precept again. So you're more careful. You pay attention to your behavior more. Best of all is developing a meditation object, such as the breath or the recitation of Buddho. If you meditate every day, you might find over time, there are times when your mind is kind of idle, you don't have anything to think about or do or talk to anyone. Your mind will quite naturally go to the meditation object, the more you do it. And that makes you more mindful. The quality of knowing is sustained and developed more through the practice, repeated practice of meditation. And walking meditation as well, because sitting meditation is the most popular kind of meditation, most popular posture, but walking meditation, walking mindfully, you'll find very helpful for helping to sustain mindfulness and the quality of knowing through the day. Because through our day we're always walking from one place to another. If you get into the habit of being mindful as you walk, then you'll find your mindfulness is sustained much better through the day. So mindfulness of precepts, mindfulness of posture, sitting, walking, and of course even lying down, you can be mindful. Someone was saying today they meditate in the lying down posture, but they don't fall asleep. They're asking if that's okay, and yeah, you can even be mindful as you lie down. So mindfulness in different activities, different postures, mindfulness of the precepts, mindfulness of a meditation object, practice repeatedly, and then listening to the Dhamma, spending time with Kalyana Mitta who practice mindfulness also. All of these will be supportive factors. Another aspect of this quality of knowing is you're looking after or guarding your mind with this by developing this quality of knowing, mindfulness in the present moment. So developing that attitude, I want to take care of my mind, I don't want to fall into unwholesome, unskillful states that will lead me to behave in or speak in unskillful ways. This sense of protecting, looking after your mind as a priority, as an important thing in your life, will also help to make you more mindful. So there's many different parts to the practice of mindfulness and developing this quality of knowing constantly. Sometimes going on courses, meditation retreats, or staying in monasteries like this will also help, because you maybe do it more intensely. And even if you can't sustain that all the time, when you go home, then you can take what you've learned and carry on practicing it. So another question. How do you know whether you are ready for the monastic life? You don't always know ahead. You can only sense it or try it, like in an experiment. you can't necessarily know, because if you've never done it before, the monastic life is so different from the lay life. You won't be able to imagine or predict everything that's going to happen and how you'll be. But luckily, many monasteries and monastic institutions help you by giving you the chance maybe to taste the monastic life temporarily for short periods of time, whether it's a few days, a few weeks, a few months. That's one way. You see how you go when you're staying in a monastery. So in a monastery, the basic rules that you would keep, the most minimum level of sila or vinaya is the 8 precepts. So that's a good start. You see how you go keeping the 8 precepts, whether you find it too difficult, your mind just is not peaceful enough to keep the 8 precepts. Occasionally there's health issues involved, like not eating in the evening, some people find difficult. Doing without your favourite entertainments, being celibate. These are things that many people find challenging, so you just try it first and see what happens before you even commit to the monastic life. And many people are idealistic. They have the idea, I want to be a monk, a nun, I want that discipline, I want the peace, I want all the good qualities that I associate with a monk or a nun. I want to be enlightened. So basically those are good aspirations, but the practical reality is that you're coming from a place of unenlightenment and you have mental defilements affecting you, greed, anger, delusion. The monastic life requires quite a lot of commitment, sincerity, discipline, effort. So when you go into the monastery, your defilements are immediately stirred up, and sometimes people find it's just too much for them. They need a bit more of a relaxed environment, less discipline, more home comforts, more freedoms in a sense of the lay life. Even though those freedoms may involve following defilement, they just need that. Maybe they have to practice on the level of the 5 precepts first, before, and not live in a monastery. For some people that's the case. But what you find is also, if you are practicing, particularly practicing meditation in lay life regularly, that will help you to be more disciplined, improve your practice of sila, the precepts. You may find, some people find their mind inclines towards the monastic life quite naturally as their meditation continues. Maybe they get tired of a lot of the sort of trivia of lay life and a lot of the burdens of lay life. And if it's a person who's in a position that they're not too tied up with family or children or work or looking after some sick parent or something, maybe they're in a position where they could consider the monastic life, and their tiredness of the lay life pushes them more towards the monastic life. Sometimes people are propelled very quickly into the monastic life. They already have faith and interest, and they already practice Buddhism on one level, but then some event propels them, really makes them fed up with lay life. So I often quote Lumpur Khao, who was an enlightened disciple of Lumpur Man, who came home from work, having worked all day in the fields very hard, and came home and found his wife in bed with her lover, and his first thought was to kill them both. But then he thought that was would be a waste of a life, because if he killed them he'd make such bad karma. The consequences don't bear thinking about. So he quickly discarded that thought and then just said, that's it, I'm off to the monastery. And he threw down his machete that he was going to kill them with and told them that they can have the farm and everything else, and off he's going. And he went off to the monastery and never came back, and he became enlightened. So it's a more kind of dramatic version. Some people they lose something, they lose a parent, and they get a great sense of the sadness of life, and that pushes and propels them into the robes. Some people split with their partner. Some people lose a child, and they want to go into the robes partly out of sadness, partly out of a wish to make merit for their child. I knew one man, he was an architect, and his son died. His son graduated from uni and then died in a car crash on the night of his graduation. It's a very sad story. So his father entered the robes, both to make merit for his son and just because he realized, that a lot of life is just pursuing things that are not that important, and the most important thing is life itself and the peace of mind you have, or lack of peace of mind when you lose it. So he became a monk, and he intended to be a monk just for a few months. He actually ended up being a monk for many, many years and helping many monasteries because he was a skilled architect. He could help many monasteries with their building projects and doing different things. So sometimes sadness propels us into the monastic life, sometimes disgust with the world, tiredness with the world, sometimes faith in a teacher or in the Buddha pulls us in, and that faith is enough for the individual to overcome all the obstacles, the difficulties of renunciation, the difficulties of letting go, the difficulties of physical discomfort, mental suffering that may come up. The faith pulls them along. And of course, probably a smaller number of people, they've already been meditating as a layperson and maybe attained some samadhi and peace. So it's only a natural step to go into the monastic life, because the monastic life is the best life for developing the mind in meditation for nibbana. Especially if someone's attained samadhi, upajjhara samadhi or jhana, they're ready for the monastic life, and they have enough inner happiness to be in the monastery and not have much doubt, not have much yearning for other things, because they already have a certain level of peace and happiness. And it's just a natural step up to go into the monastery. So in the end, you'll never know until you do it. You try it, but at least you can try temporarily first before committing full time or long term. And if you have that aspiration, we'll try it. And if it doesn't go well, we'll just go back to practicing as a layperson and try to improve your practice there. But if it does go well, we'll just carry on, and I wish you well, may you attain Nibbana. Another question. When I'm ill, I find that I have no energy to meditate. What should I do? Yes, one of the biggest challenges to meditation. Even great monks with samadhi and insight say, it's very hard to meditate when you're ill, because illness drains you of all your body energy, brings up pain, discomfort, tiredness, and this really puts pressure on the mind. Your mind thrives in a healthy, happy body, doesn't it? When the body is strong and young, particularly, your mind thrives. You've got energy to put forth in meditation, keeping precepts, doing good, helping others. This is why the Buddha said good health is a great blessing, it's a great gift. But everyone gets older, and as we get older, it's not unusual to have health issues come up, injuries sometimes, but also health issues, illness, and the problems of aging. So one of the factors is that it will drain your mental energy dealing and coping with physical pain and discomfort of old age, but also illness. And even when you're younger, when you're ill, it knocks you out. Some illnesses literally put you on your back 24 hours a day. But it doesn't mean to say you can't meditate, it just means you have to adjust certain things. You have to adjust your expectations. Don't expect to enter deep states of samadhi when you're ill, perhaps. Don't expect to have a peaceful mind at first when you're ill, but you can still practice mindfulness as you're dealing with your illness. And you can also develop a lot of wisdom around illness, understanding the changing nature of your body and any lack of self in your body by reflecting on what's going on. But of course, because you're ill and you're weak, you're tired, maybe you're in pain, you'll be under pressure. You'll have to practice a lot of patience, resilience to deal with those feelings, and they pull away all your energy. But you aim to bring up these qualities a little bit more, to come back to the resilience, to bring up whatever mindfulness you can muster, and then use a lot of wisdom. Just reflect on what's going on. And reflect, this body is impermanent, it's not self. Clearly it's not self, because when you're ill, you can't command yourself to get better. So it's teaching you that. It's a teaching, and a very profound, deep teaching. And so occasionally people get enlightened when they're ill, because they really see the suffering of the body, they see the impermanence of the body, and they see the lack of self in the body, meaning they can't control or command their illness to just disappear. They can't get rid of painful feelings, perhaps. So if they're using it as a vehicle to develop insight, wisdom, sometimes it can be the best teacher, even though it's one of the harshest teachers. So I'd say first thing is just get the attitude right. You're going to learn from your illness and make it part of your practice. The obvious mental defilement that will come up is the desire to get away from or get rid of your illness and your pain. But that's defilement, and you have to try and recognize that and bring up more equanimity, acceptance, and the patience and the resilience will help with that. Any mindfulness you can muster will help, but also the wisdom will help by just bringing you the right attitude. This illness is something you have to accept because it's happened. You get your treatment, your help if you have it, good, meet the doctor, get your treatments, but just accept it's beyond your control, so then let go. Teach yourself to let go. That sense of ownership of the pain, of the discomfort, of the negative thoughts that are maybe arising. Keep teaching yourself to let them go. So this is not self. And develop the ability just to wisely reflect or pay wise attention to your illness as much as you can. Sometimes you just have to bear with it. Be patient, but try and use it as something to learn from. And you'll find if you try to practice mindfulness and develop wise attention and wise reflection around illness, if you're fortunate enough to recover, your practice will get a boost. You'll be stronger than before, wiser than before. And if you fall ill again or have similar symptoms or other painful conditions come up, you'll have much more resilience and insight to deal with them in the future. And even, whenever the end of your life is, you'll have some qualities to help you deal with end-of-life situations, pain, discomfort, illness, and so on. And you can even bring up the reflection that if you're very ill and you're in pain and discomfort, just consider the point. Maybe you're going to die. Yes, maybe that's possible. What does that bring up in your mind? What attachments does it bring up? And you'll see your attachments to loved ones, to all kinds of ambitions and desires you want to complete but you haven't. Loved ones you don't want to separate from, all kinds of pleasures you don't want to leave. Contemplate that as a meditation while you're lying there ill or facing the symptoms of your illness and the pain. Say, maybe this will kill me. How do I want to die then? Do I want to die with a mind full of frustration, anguish, fear, anxiety, frustrated desires, or do I want to die with a peaceful mind? So you use your illness to prompt you to try harder in your practice and to let go of more. And then hopefully you're fortunate enough not to actually die, but you've used it to contemplate death. Many monks I know do that. And so they're sitting there or lying there with their pain, and they go, maybe I'll die, maybe I won't, I can accept that. And they're practicing letting go, not clinging to anything, not clinging to the future, not clinging to people or things, just bringing their mind to the present moment and observing their own situation, the conditions of the body, seeing the body as not self. If it's ill and you can't stop it being ill, you should let it go. Nothing you can do. And you might find letting it go, relaxing, actually boost your immune system. You may actually recover better or do better in your illness if you're letting go. Last question. Ajahn, I have a co-worker who is very confident but bullies me and other people. Do you have any suggestions? Come and live in the monastery, of course. But maybe you're not ready for that, as we've discussed earlier. Perhaps you have a family to look after or something. So all the Dhamma qualities that you learn in meditation, you can apply to your problem with your co-worker: patience, compassion, mindfulness, effort. Remind yourself of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha and all the teachers, and just try to respond to the situation with Dhamma rather than kilesa, mental defilement. So as your co-worker encourages you to be angry, you bring up the metta and let go of your anger. As you have this sense of injustice, the way this co-worker behaves, see how that stirs up maybe your conceit, your ego, your attachment to views about how things should be, and they're not fitting into that view of the world. See how they stir up your attachments so you can use them as a way to see and then hopefully let go of some of your own attachments. It's not that you seek out co-workers who are bullies and difficult, but if that's what you have to face, try to learn from the situation about yourself. More than worrying about them, maybe they'll have to deal with their own karma and their own actions. Of course, if they're really hurting you or someone close to you, you can maybe seek help, protection, and in most workplaces you've got some method to deal with these situations if they become extreme. But if it's more minor, just use it as a chance to learn about yourself and your own defilements that are stirred up by this person's behavior. You'll need more patience, more compassion, more mindfulness to let go of your own defilements that are triggered by them. And so they can become your best teacher at that time. A difficult teacher, but nevertheless a teacher. And we all know that you can't always escape these things. You may move from this workplace, go to another, and you'll find the same situation again. So it's a recurring pattern in life that you often have to come back to how you are practicing with it rather than trying to fix externally the situation all the time. Doesn't mean to say you can't do anything externally, but it's hard sometimes, but you can fix internally how you're thinking and dealing with it. That's where you practice most. So even monks get bullied. Lumpur Man, famous for being bullied by a naga in the cave. He went to stay in a cave, everyone warned him, don't go and stay in that cave. There's a really fierce, threatening naga in that cave. Naga is like serpent god or dragon. Don't go there. Monks go there and they go crazy. Monks go there and they die. Don't go there. But Lumpur Man was fearless, enlightened, arahant, so he went and stayed in the cave. And of course, as he was walking meditation up and down, the Naga came out and started complaining, "Who's this bald-headed monk tramping up and down in this cave, making so much noise in my cave?" Even though he's walking very gently and silently. He was being a very obnoxious, bullying Naga. So Luang Por Man met the obnoxious, bullying Naga with compassion, loving kindness, mindfulness, restraint, patience, until basically he exhausted the Naga, and the Naga was tamed by Luang Por Man's very reasonable behavior, very kind, compassionate attitude, to the point where this Naga reflected on its own behavior and felt humbled and ashamed, and declared his faith in Luang Por Man and then the Buddha, and after that promised to be a good Naga. So that's the kind of classic way to deal with the bully. We may not be quite as successful as Luang Por Man yet, but we can take his example to try and maintain mindfulness and compassion and patience with the bully, and see if you can sort the problem out that way. So there's a few questions tonight. Hope they're useful. Hope the answers are useful to you, and we wish you well in your practice.